We didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it. When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure. And I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose. It was a 104-page, dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay? It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is full of doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius.
So one of the key things that we focused on at the beginning of this channel about 5 years ago was to break down the notion that cops are out hunting black people. That clip was from Roland G. Fryer Jr. He is a faculty member of arts and sciences with the Department of Economics with Harvard University. And this guy here breaks all of those narratives because this is a guy coming from a hailed institute and he has brown skin. What makes it so interesting is that he is coming out and referring to a study that he did or several studies that he did about cops not having a racial bias when it comes to arresting black people. So I'm going to actually go over this video. It's about 2.5 minutes long. At the end of this, I'm going to show you the actual studies that he had and some links that back all this up, including a short that we did about 4 years ago about this whole thing. And that's fully backed up with data as well. And I'll show you how to access that. So with that being said, let's go.
Collected a lot of data. We collected millions of observations on everyday use of force that wasn't lethal.
Now, he said they collected millions of data on non-lethal force. Now, that may seem excessive, but if you really think about it, take all of the police officers in the country and take their hours that they actually put into every shift, every single day, compute that for however long period you will have millions of hours. And we had something on that. I don't have the stat in front of me, but doing the math, there it is. There's a lot of activity that's non-lethal that we never hear about. And yes, there are millions of data points.
We collected thousands of observations on lethal force. And it was in this moment in 2016 that I realized people lose their minds when they don't like the result. So what my paper showed, you'll see tomorrow, like some of you, was that, yes, we saw some bias in the low-level uses of force, every day pushing up against cars and things like that. People seem to like that result. But we didn't find any racial bias in police shootings. Now, that was really surprising to me because I expected to see it.
Let's just stop there. Now, for those of you on this channel, that's not really surprising. Okay, we've been talking about this for a long time, not just me, but all over the conservative sphere when it comes to this topic. I mean, the data proves it out. But he said at the beginning, he said, isn't it shocking how people lose their minds when they hear or see data that they don't like? And that's across the board. It's that whole thing of cognitive dissonance, where you hear new information and now you have to do something with that. One of the reasons why I'm where I am is because I had to fight through those sorts of things. I wasn't always a conservative. In fact, I was a staunch Democrat across the board. But it took a few data points, the gospel of Christ, and just common sense to see the truth. And many people are blinded by that. And many people take that, whatever it is, and they put it on them as some sort of God or some sort of virtue. And now they don't want to get rid of that because that gives them status, gives them a sort of empowerment, allows them to do things, say things with impunity, especially when we have a society that doesn't push back.
The little known fact is I had 8 full-time RAs that it took to do this over nearly a year. When I found this surprising result, I hired 8 fresh ones and redid it to make sure.
So he hired 16 RAs to do this. Sounds pretty thorough. And for Harvard University, stands to reason that this is, that's up to their standard. At least it was probably back then. Not sure about today.
They came up with the same exact answer, and I thought it was robust. And then I went to go give it, and my God, all hell broke loose. It was a 104-page, dense academic economics paper with a 150-page appendix, okay? It was posted for 4 minutes when I got my first email. This is full of shit. Doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back, how'd you read it that fast? That's amazing. You are a genius. And I had colleagues take me in.
Because people don't want to know the truth. They don't care. They want stuff to fill their narrative. That's it. Because when you look at it really closely, they have to have this because it justifies millions and millions and probably billions of dollars in various institutions, programs, sports teams, leagues, whatever it is, to push forth whatever they want to push forth. If you don't believe me, look at Colin Kaepernick. It's a perfect example of marketing material where race becomes a industry. But not only there, it's also an ideology that people adhere to that they just don't want to let go.
To the side and say, don't publish this. You'll ruin your career. I said, what are you talking about? I said, what's wrong with it? Do you believe the first part? Yes. Do you believe the second part? Well, the issue is they just don't fit together. We like the first one, but you should publish the second one another time. I said, let me ask this. If the second part about the police shootings, this is a literal conversation. I said to them, if the second part showed bias, do you think I should publish it then? And they say, yeah, then it would make sense.
In their twisted form of logic, I'm trying to resort to that. They're saying, I think two things going on here. It doesn't fit. So the first part with non-lethal force, taking black people, throwing up on cars, being rough with them, whatever, had a bias to it, which I get to that in a second. But the second part didn't. Well, I think two parts. One, they want to separate the narrative so they can run with the first story and then they can brush the second one if they publish it later under the covers. And the second part of that is that they don't want to have the main part of it, which is there is bias, be overshot, which is by the killings, which have no bias. So they have to separate it because one, they can run them separately and bury the other. And secondly, if you put it together, the one with no bias is going to overshadow the area that they really care about that fits their narrative, if that makes any sense. So let's get going.
And I said, I guarantee you I'll publish it. We'll see what happens. So it was, I lived under police protection for about 30 or 40 days. What? I had a 7-day-old daughter at the time. I remember going and shopping for it because, when you have a newborn, you think you have enough diapers, you don't. So I was going to the grocery store to get diapers with an armed guard. It was crazy. It was really, truly crazy.
So let me stop there because let me talk about the thing I was going to say a minute ago. It's about the first part with the bias. Well, there's something called criminal profiling, and then there's called racial profiling. Let me give you a perfect example, and it's easy to understand. Here is racial profiling. Okay, you see a black grandmother who is going with a walker, who is going into the store, and the cops are looking for a black person who just robbed a bank a block down the street. Maybe it was a woman, maybe it wasn't. Maybe the person was wearing blue, the old lady was wearing blue. And then they charge her, knock her down, handcuff her. Obviously, that's probably a racial, it could be considered a racial profiling. It could be other things too. But here's what criminal profiling looks like. You have a person in a trench coat wearing shades in Arizona. It's 103 degrees outside. He's got a bulge in his jacket and he's staying outside of the bank and he's sweating nervously. Now, going after that person right there, there's a criminal element in there that you can obviously deduce and say, hey, let's go after this guy or question him or whatever. and criminally profile him because he fits the profile of a criminal. So let's go and take a look at this particular study. It's right here, an empirical analysis of racial differences in police use of force. This is Roland G. Fryer Jr. It was published on July 2016, revised about a year and a half later. And like he said, it is massive. It's huge. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And this is his 150-page appendixes he was talking about before. Looks like pretty thorough to me. And for someone to say in 10 minutes, in 4 minutes to say that's not true, and then essentially to fear for his life because of this, and to have people say, you can publish half of it now because it fits our narrative, but the other half you can do later, is telling. Very, very, very much telling. And so let me show you this particular clip that we did here on this channel. And the video is called Why Cops Are Not the Problem. And we did this. It's a short of 60 seconds. Check this out. We actually documented it. I'll show you that in a second.
Blacks commit nearly 3 times the crime of white people. Blacks commit 36% of violent crimes here in America, but make up only 13% of the population. The parity of blacks in the UK and blacks in America proves that there is no systemic or institutional racism here in America, and that the judicial system is not unfairly targeting blacks. In 2020, the USA Today did an extensive study proving that 99% of cops are actually good and law-abiding. In 2020, 18 unarmed black men were shot by police. A recent study by University of Delaware Criminal Justice Department found that some black communities are predisposed to what they call violent subculture theory, meaning that they are more tolerant in these communities by their culture for crime and violence. Even if we remove all shootings by police in America, the black murder rate would still be 99%. And guess what? 93% of that would be at the hands of another black person. If you're gonna blame somebody, blame the Democrat Party's Jim Crow laws, FDR's redlining, LBJ's war on poverty, Biden's 1994 crime bill. Anyone telling you that there's systemic targeting of blacks by police in America is lying to you.
So here you can access the sources for this particular video. Go to theconservativetake.com. I'll leave a link to this in the description below. In there, we have the PDFs for all of this as well. If you are a member on Locals, you can see this as well. We have all the PDFs just in case they aren't there anymore. And so the reason being is because this is a key issue that happens all the time when I am talking to black people, particularly, or some white people who are liberal who think they know it all, about why the Republicans or why conservatives or why we need certain things to benefit black people disproportionately because of some sort of racial inequality. Well, I don't see any of it. And the numbers, particularly when it comes to police officers, don't play out. There's tons of data out there. And so this is a real God when it comes to liberals. They have to have stuff like this. They have to have cops are racist, cops are hunting blacks, like LeBron James said, to stir up the fires, to put forth legislation, to do whatever they have to do, to get sponsored ads on Nike or whatever, because they know that they can get people emotional and they will go and spend money to that cause and make the people richer. It's absolutely an atrocity. And so that's why these sort of things are so controversial, because they destroy that woke narrative. So let me know what you think about what Mr. Fryer did in his study and his interview, and what do you think about this issue? I mean, why don't people get the common sense of this? Do you agree with me that they're trying to just exploit for whatever reasons, either through ideology or through profit? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be curious to know what you think. Also, please like and subscribe and share with your friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one.